No system is perfect. Administrator is not like God. Can say, let there be light and there is light. Faculty is forcing, padna hai, you study these tight exams. Instead of looking for jobs, you think of creating jobs and give jobs to others. So we are mortal, so we have to do things to make things happen. I think there are a lot of opportunities. बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for taking out time for the interview.
Good morning to you and good morning to all those who are listening.
Sir, during your initial visits to various facilities and departments at IITBHU, what were your key observations and what is your next plan and goals to enhance the environment and output?
Yeah, actually, during my first observation, the most positive thing I saw was the excellent laboratories and laboratory practices adopted by the faculty and the students. And also, so that is the positive side. On the negative side, I felt that I think more funding is required to strengthen those facilities. So immediately I started working on that and started acquiring funds and transferring them to the department so that they can really excel in this way.
So we recently ranked under the NIRF top 10 engineering institutions.
Right.
How can we keep the momentum going and take the institute to greater heights?
Yeah, actually that's a very good question. In fact, let me tell you, regarding that, I really don't have much credit except that I might have brought some luck to the institute because I joined very recently. But at the same time, it is also a challenge. Now that we have already reached 10, we have to do better than that. But I mean, it may take a few years maybe. Within that time there may be ups and downs. We need not be too worried about it. So what I am sure we can stay within the top 10. And in fact, we should be able to position very close to top 5. That is my expectation based on again the strength of the faculty that I have seen, the research that the faculty is doing.
Okay, sir. So, what was the initial perception of IITBHU and how does it change over time?
My perception you are talking about, right? Yeah. So it hasn't changed much except that I am able to see some changes which I am trying to introduce. So basically I felt this IIT to be really a great place in terms of infrastructure, facilities. All we need to do is to polish it up a little bit like uncut diamonds. We can cut and polish and then it will fetch a much more premium price.
So how much do you think good publicity and public relations are important for the
Yeah, that's one thing. So that follows from what I said, polishing that. So that's happening, I think, and these days we're encouraging faculty to talk to the press, talk about their research work and whatever good things that are happening, we should tell to others. Otherwise, you just can't just keep mum and expect everybody to know how great you are. That doesn't happen anymore. Now that we have so much opportunity, all these videos, social networks, we must take advantage of that.
So, definitely. So, while walking in, we can see great artworks. It seems that you have a taste in art. So, would you like to show us some of your art pieces?
Yeah, sure. You are welcome to visit. It's really, I won't say I have much credit for that. It is more my wife and my daughter. They have interest, and my daughter also paints. So, in fact, if you go around the house, you will find some of the paintings of my daughter as well, apart from some Madhubani and other Bengal arts that we have.
So, while IITBHU has commendable facilities, what are your plans for upgrading and scaling the infrastructure to support the growing student intake and the evolving academic needs?
Yeah, actually there are different levels in which we have to think. One is that while there is a lot of infrastructure, much of particularly buildings that are 100+ years old. And then there are laboratories, again, some are pretty old. So that is one aspect. The other part is the hostels, again the housing. So we have a plan and already we have started investing with government help So 400 crores of infrastructure in terms of 2 student hostels, 1 boys, 1 girls, 1 staff housing, the 2 part of the same unit, and then we have 2 high-tech kind of buildings, 1 housing a research part, another housing some of the precision facilities of the institute, plus of course on the much awaited students activities computing center. And I'm not going to tell you the full details now, but you're going to see better, I think, than what we all expected. Yeah, with the help of even other people like alumni, right? So those are things happening. But what I have calculated is, these projects will take 2 to 3 years to complete. But by that time, they will be probably taken just right to accommodate the people, and with our growth plan of increasing the number of students, particularly the PhD students, number of faculty, because faculty student ratio is very poor. In fact, that there is actually huge potential to recruit and improve our rankings. Actually, that matters quite a lot. So another level of investment is required. That is one aspect. The other aspect is laboratory facilities. Many of the sophisticated equipment like ACMs, TEMs, they are very, very old, and they cost a lot of money. So that is another thing. So another huge investment is required within next 1 or 2 years. That is what we are targeting.
So how important do you think student taking on leadership roles in organizing activities and events in college beneficial to them in their professional and personal growth?
Yeah, actually the term leadership is very fuzzy, and everybody can make their own interpretation. But I try to keep things simple, in my own way. So what I feel is that leadership is that when you stop focusing on yourself and focus on others. These others could be anybody. It could be your wingmates. It could be your juniors in the institute, or it could be on some activity which will help the society or the country in the long run. Like we have these drone activities, electric vehicles activities. So you basically I think to summarize in a way, actually leaders are not told to do things. When something comes from within and then do it, that is leadership. You don't want to get a platform and give lectures. That is not leadership, But we sometimes tend to think that is, becoming a neta is a leadership. No, it is not neta. It's not that. Doing beyond your call of duty is leadership. So that is where I expect everybody to contribute, and the more they can contribute, the society and the country will benefit.
So, according to you, what should be the focus areas for students beyond academics?
This is actually extension to academics. We are forcing faculty is forcing padna hai, you study these, write exam. So again, that is not leadership. So beyond that, let them do whatever their heart tells them to, whatever they have a passion for. That is where that is where they will discover their hidden qualities. Right. In fact, all said and done, in our country, our parents don't know their children's capability. Either they overestimate or underestimate, and causing unhappiness at some point or other.
How student involvement is beneficial and crucial in organizing events?
So that is, that need not be told, that is essential. Without students' help, how do we organize events like, let's say, sports meets, alumni meets, cultural meets? So those are all there. And then wellness society and, counseling. And so basically, participation is, again, doesn't mean that you have to dictate terms to anybody. You have to ensure that your voice is heard. So whenever you get a good idea for the administration, that should always be heard by the administration. That mechanism should be there, and I think that's there through the student parliament.
Sir, having served at IIT Kharagpur as a professor, and also you were a student at IIT Kharagpur, so what experience you can recollect and what do they reflect in your personality?
So no system is perfect, right? So nor is IIT Kharagpur, nor is IITBHU. But that is where, what I have always found is that clearly tells us that, that gives us an opportunity to improve. If everything is too perfect and then even administration thinks that everything is perfect, don't touch, then you really don't have much opportunity. But I think there are a lot of opportunities, both when I was there at IIT Kharagpur and here, to streamline things, improve the processes, and look at the targets. Like we want to reach certain number of, let's say, publications or patents per year to be achieved. How to create processes so that that happens. So it has to be an inclusive process. It cannot be just that do it, just like director or anybody, administrator is not like God who can say let there be light and there will light. No, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So you have to do things to, just if we literally take that, like we are taking this exercise of, adding air conditioners in classrooms and, major hostels also, common rooms. So wish is there, but to make it happen, there are so many steps. Even if we say, I am giving you money to buy air conditioners. Now, if there is a place where there will be 10 air conditioners have to be put, then people say, okay, is there enough power line coming? Other lines will burst, tomorrow there will be an accident. You cannot just put it there, and then the power has to come from somewhere. Then overall institute's power load will increase. So does our transformers and all, will they be able to support? Will the grid be able to support? All these things have to be seen, and then necessary actions have to be taken at all those steps. Then only you will get light or air conditioning, right? So we are mortals, so we have to do things to make things happen.
So managing an institute like an IIT must be challenging and toiling. How do you keep the positivity?
Actually, that's a good question. In fact, I'm also thinking myself, when I was in IIT Kharagpur also, and when I'm here, I'm feeling a difference. For example, I'm feeling more energetic, and so I'm also trying to figure out what is the reason. But I think it actually happens that when I see an opportunity and some challenges to reach those goals, that probably excites me. So, and that creates the positivity, if I do this way, things will improve, and overall happiness index will increase, right? Whether it is student, faculty, staff, whoever. So if I'm working towards a positive goal, I think positivity comes automatically, stays.
So you have worked extensively in building alumni relations and fostering them. So what do you think about the alumni community of IITBHU, the legacy, and how will you, what will be your steps to engage more with the alumni community?
Engagement, is in the engagement, So to talk to them, there is no other alternative. And so we have to have a much bigger, setup. Alumni relations setup, which you have to connect with the alumni and know about them. Then some of them would like to, many of them we are already talking to many of them, and in fact recently the 74 batch came for their golden jubilee. So many of them want to do something, right? Everybody may not be giving money. They may not be that reach or whatever you may say, but they have their passion for giving something back. Maybe they share their knowledge. They can mentor our students. They can help them connect with the right people. And small things, they started in a small way, but I think that is where we need to. There is a huge potential. In fact, I think we have received less than 1% of what our alumni can do. So again, big opportunity there.
So, what are your thoughts regarding the changes in the national education policy and how are we implementing that in campus?
We have already started the curriculum review, and the Bible for that is National Education Policy 2020. So we're going to incorporate as much of that, especially giving more exposure to our students to outside, like extended internships, like 1 semester away internships, and then entrepreneurship and practice-oriented curriculum, industry relationships. More industry people can be invited to give lectures. So we need to make it open, and also at that time giving an option for the students to even take additional online credits, because online teaching is becoming more and more standardized. So once that, including our own NPTEL SWAM platform. So once that is standardized, why students cannot benefit and get recognized for that. So we try to create many of these opportunities for the students.
So, what strategies do you consider integrating placement support and career development into academics at the institute?
Yeah, I think the concept is changing. Yeah, this placement support, the less we need, the better for us. Right, so that is where entrepreneurship and that kind of things come in. As our Honorable Minister said in his convocation speech this time, instead of looking for jobs, you think of creating jobs and give jobs to others. I think let us slowly try to focus on that. So then, no matter how much placement you do, 100% placement is always is elusive. You can never reach that. So instead of really trying to focus your energy, and there is also a law of diminishing return. Suppose for now we have placed 1,300 students this year. The next year, if you have to do 1,500 students, you have to maybe call another 500 companies. Then it becomes mind-boggling and just impossible. So we can probably loosen in terms of placement, or maybe we can broaden it up in some way. I'm not sure how it can be done, but I'm sure there is a way that our students can use some kind of an online platform for internships, both internships and placement. In fact, we have signed up with a US startup who happen to be IIT Kharagpur alumni, most of them, to create a platform, and to use a platform which is, in fact, we are also helping in making the platform more useful. It's called Trumio. So we already signed the MOU, and students can use that platform to get access to internships, and in future, and in fact, always many of the internships get transferred to PPUs. So that is a good pathway. And then jobs also. So people should be able to use all these tools in the future, and then the entrepreneurship will be the glue, which will finally fill the rest. Right, and that should be considered by not those who are not going to get jobs, but those who are going to get jobs, who are sure of getting jobs, generally, they will be more capable of entrepreneurship. So we should take it in a positive way, and then that will reduce the pressure on this thing. In fact, as far as I know, no US university has placement cells. Right, so but they are doing much better than us. So why don't we try to emulate? Of course, if you ask me today, I don't know the answer, but no, that is my wish list, among the wish list that I have.
So what are the initiatives we are taking at IITBHU to bridge the academia and the industry?
Yeah. So that will happen over time. So I'm encouraging faculty to talk to industry and get at least partial funding of their projects. In fact, Government of India is also now insisting on that. So suppose you want to get, say X amount of money, you at least get 15, 20, 25% from that from the industry, and they will be given priority, those who are doing that. And we need to attract private investment in terms of research. No, government will probably give the infrastructure, but more than that, if you want to get, we need that private thing. So faculty knows this, and so I think surely that it will happen. And of course, we will do certain facilitation, like organizing workshops and industry, academia, sales. One excellent thing that has happened is the DRDO. There is a DRDO academia, they are doing industry academia, they call it DIA, Center of Excellence. And so that's an excellent mechanism, and a lot of funding is coming through that. So they are giving the major funding, but there has to be industrial partners who will take that product eventually. So our faculty is very active on that, and it's happening very well. So similar to that, we have actually identified few areas, like one is the electric vehicles and sustainable transportation. Then we have healthcare technologies. Then we are also thinking of tying up with BHU in agri-tech. They have agro, we have tech. So this is a good possibility. And we have plans to jointly develop some kind of research park or business park in the agro-tech and maybe the other two areas. And in the not so distant future.
So, how does IITBHU measure the success of entrepreneurship initiatives? Is there any matrix that the institute uses to show it to alumni and students?
No, the current level of entrepreneurship is at such a low level. We are yet to develop those metrics. We are happy we can. They are countably finite, right? So, but slowly we will do that. In fact, we have already seen that IIT Madras has done that. So they have evaluated the net worth of their startups. So to do like that, in the formal ways, so we can utilize that.
So with sustainability becoming our key global focus, how are we at IITBHU encouraging startups in this space around sustainability and green development?
That's towards green initiative, green technology. So startups will automatically come because there is a big opportunity. But as an institution, we are committed to sustainability and creating a green campus. And two of the research buildings which we are going to make, we have taken decisions to make them sustainable buildings, including the research park.
So what are the specific features that we are looking at in a sustainable kind of a...
Sustainable building should consume less energy, and there may be some regenerative component like ensuring that strong solar photovoltaic system is thought of from the day the building is designed, not retrofitting that जहाँ थोड़ी जगह है वहाँ थोड़ा पैनल लगा दो, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. So if we start thinking like that, and then some kind of passive cooling, proper ventilation, so that you don't need to consume that much of air conditioning load, to reduce the expenditure in terms of load and try to generate some of that power, right? So that will be two main themes. But then it is again a technology, so we are trying to get experts who have developed such technologies. But in our faculty also we have, and we are recruiting more faculty who have experience in this area, especially in the architecture department.
So, who's your favorite poet or artist?
Poet is of course, Rabindranath Tagore, and artist I used to love, is Hemant Mukhopadhyay in Bengal.
So we have talked more about your passion for singing, songs, artists, poems. So can you please share your favorite song?
Yes, sure. You want me to sing it?
Yeah, you definitely. You can go.
So I actually have three versions. So let me try a couple of lines from the English version, which I have created from Tagore's song, which is called তুমি কেমন করে গান করো রে তুমি I cannot imagine how you sing so fine in wonder I listen again still I cannot imagine how you sing so fine.
So are you a person who reads more of fiction or non-fiction?
I used to, reading is taking a backstage these days, but fiction used to be my favorite.
So, any role model in your life?
Very difficult to say. In fact, I feel I am trying to learn something from everybody, you know. So, and nobody is perfect. So, try to take the best from everybody and, you know, try to follow that.
Do you binge watch?
Not really, you know, except during the COVID period when I have time to kill.
So what were you watching during COVID?
It will be mostly, you know, news and analysis in YouTube primarily, and of course music, listening to music.
So, are you fond of movies? Do you watch?
You know, I used to be, you know, so there were several movies, especially Hindi movies and few English, not too many English movies, but yeah, I did watch.
So what's your comfort food?
My comfort food. I think, you know, again, it has evolved with time. I'd say maybe chocolate.
That's great. So, do you cook?
I do cook, but I am not a good cook. So I just try out a few things here and there, and you know, and I'm happy if I can eat them myself.
So what are the things you've tried cooking recently?
So recently they are not letting me cook.
Craziest thing you did in college, like in your college time?
Well, I'm not a crazy person, so you have to really imagine hard to think something crazy. But what I can say is that, you know, these days I feel really proud of things that I did, which I don't know how I did them, because I used to be a very, keep a low profile, but I did take, you know, few initiatives like, you know, publishing a magazine and you know, in fact, giving lectures, you know, kind of to students, where when professor used to come and listen.
So if you weren't a professor, what is a profession you would have loved to be in?
If I had not been a professor, you know, in fact, I am kind of now I'm a runaway professor. I have ran away from teaching since 2021, when I have been to a full administrative role. Yeah, so now I'm enjoying this quite well because you know, as I said somewhere else as well, that there are so much opportunity to do things, so many gaps are there to fill. So as an administrator, if I can improve the teaching process and institution, I think that is a great opportunity.
So, what is your favorite family time?
Yeah, favorite family time is a kind of misnomer, and my family must have suffered because of me. But try to keep it whenever I get time, in the sense that we go away on vacations time to time, and whenever possible, you know, of course, family vacation means always family vacation, and try to find time whenever possible.
So we get you are fond of traveling?
I am fond of traveling, I feel. In fact, I feel very disappointed when I reach the destination because the travel ends there.
So what are your favorite tourist places?
Oh, there is no end to it. You know, I enjoy the beaches and the forests too, and the hills. So there are different places I have been to, you know, both in the country and abroad, and I enjoyed, you know, all of them. So I mean, it's difficult to pick one as a favorite, but places like, you know, Puri or Goa, you know, which are having beaches, those are the most attractive ones.
Where do you get these t-shirt collections?
Well, again, I think I have to give full credit to my wife and my daughter. because in my early life I used to be, very, somebody who is, plain and, kind of drab clothing and or say official kind of a thing. But as I progressed, I became more open to, experimenting with other colors, and then I started enjoying. And so right now, I can't give a specific place where I buy them from, but wherever I go to, if I find a good shirt or something, I try to pick it up. So I have picked up one in Hawaii and one in Malaysia and one in Thailand and things like that. So, giving links may be difficult to remember where I bought them from.
So, we wanted to know, how did you really end up doing engineering and in this profession? Was it some family motivation, or you were always into sciences or something?
No, that is very interesting. Yeah, no, I was into sciences. That, it came from there. In fact, after I cleared my JE, I thought I would study physics because I didn't know anything about engineering. So one of the professors, since I used to be from the IIT Kharagpur campus, apart from my father, my father was from geophysics, so still it's science. So I didn't even hear about that I'm engineering so much. But there was a civil engineering professor who was my neighbor, and he, congratulated me and said, "So Amit, what do you want to study?" I said, "I will study physics." So he was so surprised. "You will study physics?" I said, "Yes, so I like physics, so why I should not study physics?" I said, "Oh, I see. But if you study engineering, you'll get a much better career opportunity." And so I said, "No, but from my school, I like physics so much." He said, "Very good, engineering also uses physics, chemistry, maths, everything. So if you like physics, why don't you think of electrical engineering?" So that's where, physics got transformed into electrical engineering, which is, of course, physics and math and everything.
So have you ever had a life-changing moment or incident?
I can't recall because I have not, I'm generally a very, kind of person who takes things slowly. So when I see something, when I'm under some situation, I don't let it, change my outlook, or in another way, I may like to put it nicely, I don't have any knee-jerk reaction. So even if it has happened, its effect has come to me in a slow way. So I don't think I can recall any such thing.
So we were mostly done on the side, but there were 2-3 more questions that we wanted to ask. So how does it feel being a director of the institute, which has 100 years plus of legacy? How does it feel?
Yeah, it's a kind of very, humbling feeling that some institution which has 100 years of heritage, 100 years of legacy, and how to, grow it further without causing any, any loss of its, heritage value.
So what message would you like to convey to the pioneering engineers?
Yeah. So, the pioneering engineers, I think you have to be creative, and whatever you study in IIT or wherever, that is just giving you a little exposure of things, and your life is going to be different. Life is not, answering question papers. In fact, everybody is going to have a different question paper in life. And so you have to read your question paper and figure out how to answer them. Nobody will give you a model answer.
Okay. So one more. Are you a morning bird or a night owl? Like, are you a morning person?
Well, I enjoy waking up in the mornings, but generally I find that let me sleep a couple of hours more, and then generally and then stay long. I can stay as long as it's needed. In fact, I can stay overnight as well. But yeah, but then I need my sleep, and then that's why, morning I feel like, sleeping more if I don't have any appointments and things like that.
So, is there any childhood memory or your hometown memory you would like to share?
So one of the childhood memories I cherish is how I used to go to school in the morning. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. It was class 1, and I used to go alone. My parents used to give me some tiffin and then say, okay, go to the school, and I used to walk them there, maybe a couple of kilometers away. And those walks were actually, where I really found my freedom at an early age. So that is what I cherish a lot.
So you've been at IITBHU for almost 6 months now. How has been the experience so far, and have you had the chance to explore Varanasi?
Oh yes, in fact that, IITBHU is great, but, Varanasi is greater. And, that's the ambience, one gets into. And, after coming to Varanasi, of course, I have not wasted any opportunity to visit the temples, even BHU for that matter. In fact, BHU is the mother of IITBHU. Now, of course, we are kind of siblings, but still BHU is the elder sister, we can say, right? So they have been great, and I would like to, summarize in a couple of sentences, if you allow me. बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं ये बनारस, ये BHU, ये IIT और अब सब.
That's so good and mesmerizing, sir, and thoughtful.
Thank you. Thanks.
Is engagement, so we will talk to them. There is no other alternative, and so we have to have a much bigger, setup, alumni relation setup, which will be able to connect with the alumni and know about them. Then some of the
So we posted this on Instagram, and this was an Instagram post on the institute handle, and the comments were so people are legit fans of your t-shirt collection, the shirt collection.
right.
So
A lot of people have questions. So where do you get those kind of shirts from? And people want to get links of the websites where you buy from.
Yes, public.
We'll do that.
Yeah, because I might have given more than I bargained for.
Do the वो वाला question यहाँ पे पूछना है जो overall experience.
वो तो हो गया ना, ठीक ठाक रहा ना. हाँ बढ़िया. तब ठीक है, वो better in the outputs. That's what I know. Yeah, इधर से करा दिया ना.
but closing time अगर हम यहाँ पे डालेंगे तो outdoor से मस्त कैसे डालेंगे?
So फिर अगर हम वो वाला रखेंगे तो we have to keep it in between क्योंकि
क्योंकि वो अगर कैमरा में रिकॉर्ड होता है तो कॉन्शियस हो जाते हैं.
इंटरव्यू बोलेंगे.
तो बैठा के रिकॉर्ड करके उसे सुन लेते हैं.
एक मिनट हम बस जगह बना लें. आराम से इसलिए हम नहीं जानते हो क्या रहा है वो. एक मिनट इससे नहीं कटेगा. नहीं कट नहीं रहा.